Hello, everyone. So this session is called Why a Life Coach Needs a Life Coach, or Why Coaches Need Coaches. I'd like to introduce you to my coach, who lives in Brisbane in Australia, called Chris Wildeboer. She works like I work. We are certified life coaches, but we also have our intuitive abilities and our other trainings in other healing and intuitive modalities. Chris is the only other coach I have met who can actually pull me up and go, "Oi, Julie, listen," especially when I'm in my head, because she can get into my head and she understands where my train of thought is going, because we work very similarly. I am a life coach, as you know, and just because I'm a life coach doesn't mean that I don't need guidance sometimes, or that I don't get in my head. And as Chris will tell you in a minute, I'm constantly in my head. And she is the person I call. If you ever go to a life coach and they say to you that they don't need a life coach and that they're perfect, well, you know that it would probably be a good idea not to spend your money there, because just because we're a coach doesn't mean that we know everything and can solve everything, because we can't. So I'd like to introduce you to my lovely Chris, who has really helped me, especially through COVID, when I did one of her special programs, Unlock Your Power. And she's really been so wonderful and helpful to me. And I'd like her to tell you about herself and about her company, Balance Central and Raw. So over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you for all of that introduction, Julie, and hello to everyone that follows your channel, because it's absolutely a pleasure to be part of this conversation and sharing with your audience. So I'm going to qualify something for a second, though, because I'm technically not a certified life coach. And I really want to make that distinction, because I think that we will default people into coaches. And I think one of the things that it's all well and good to have a label, but the label doesn't actually matter. It's about the connection. So I love that you've just referred to me as a life coach, because that just says that you resonate with me on that same level. But I think that really when we're looking for a coach or something, it's less about what they do and more about who they are. That is really vital when we're looking for that. And so I'm kind of doing two things there. I'm saying, no, I'm not a certified life coach, and yet the label doesn't matter, because it's about the connection, which is, of course, what you and I experienced the moment we laid eyes on each other through Zoom.
Yes.
So I totally agree with you, though. If you come across someone and they're offering you some form of program online, in person, doesn't matter. If they're not showing that they take care of themselves in a really active way, and that usually involves self-care, other people being available for them to go to, and also often I find I'm also involved in groups. So I have multiple avenues of doing that kind of mentoring, coaching, a combination. And at any time during my business life, I've had a variety of combination of all of that at any given time. And so I totally agree with you. When we come across someone and they go, "Oh no, I've got it all going on," I go, "Fibber."
That's what I like about you, Chris. You're straight to the point, and you have that, what we say, Australianness about you. There's no messing. You say it how it is. And I think, again, this is why we get on so well, because you're able to just shut me up and tell it how it is.
With love, Julie, with love. I do it with love.
Absolutely with love, Chris. And that's why I like you, because I think, oh my gosh, at least she gets me. You get in here and you get me and tell me how. So I like that about you. So carry on telling us about what you do.
Okay, well, I think I always like to start at why I do what I do before I say what it is I do, because sometimes the what I do can be not as important. The why I do any type of work to support others is because as a child, I really wasn't supported. So I spent a lot of my early adult years hunting and searching for support in all the wrong places. And I eventually had to come back to myself and find my own self-support. And what was interesting, when I found that self-support, I started to notice who else had been supporting me along the way. But I was so busy looking for that support that I couldn't see it. And I explain it that way because I think that's how people find me. When they're ready to do some self-support and they're ready to really look deeply into what they have going on, where their frustrations are, then they can start to see who might actually be able to help them with that. And so it's all about empowering their own self-support. We often think that when we're struggling with something, it could just be daily frustration. It could be a lifelong frustration. It could be, I don't know how to achieve that next goal. We think we have to work it all out by ourselves. But we're our own worst enemy at the best of times. And we need to have someone else to just give us a little bit of fresh perspective. And I find that that perspective allows people to find their own answers. And so that's really what I do. I hold space for people on a pretty deep level so that they can find their own answers. And that's a privilege from my perspective, because it's not something that everybody has the capacity to do. And I know what I've been through to actually get to that space myself. So that's a bit of why I do what I do. And getting to the what, yes, there's technical, is a technique that I use, and that's great, but it's less about the technique. That technique just matches me. It matches my rhythm in life. It matches my need to count, which quite honestly is a coping strategy that I developed as a child. I used to count the number of steps till I got home, and I would count everything. It was a calming. It would help my anxiety. I didn't know that that's what it was doing, but I would count a lot of things. And so this technique that I use actually uses a lot of counting. It's very process orientated. It ticks all of my boxes about how I function and cope in life. And because it matches me, it doesn't actually have to match anyone that I work with. I just match people. So that's where I come back to find that connection of who you connect with. And it's less about the technique that they do. And it's less about their label.
That's very true, Chris. I completely agree with you. And of course, that was how we connected too. And that's how I found with my clients as well. It's that we do connect, and we almost become we are their support and their best friend. And yet we're just holding that space for them and helping them to find their solutions within them. And it is that connection, definitely the connection as well. So wonderful.
And there's such a variety of techniques that can be used. And really, it's about what we're individually attracted to as far as the practitioner goes. But at the end of the day, we're all providing support for people to move through from wherever they are to where they want to be. And I remember the first time I was in a networking room and there were was a really small networking room. There were 10 people in the room. 5 of us all said something very, very similar. I think there was a yoga instructor, a kinesiologist, there was me. I don't know, there were 2 others. It was a long time ago. And everybody got up and said their little 2-minute pitch, and everybody had the word balance in their pitch in some form or another. And I remembered the feeling, and I still remember it today, feeling this sense of peace, because everyone in that room now had somebody to go to and no excuses.
Yeah.
So I love it when there's more and more people providing an opportunity for others to do some self-growth.
Yeah, and find their balance. So
because sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's mental. It's a whole combination, and we're all looking. We need it at different times.
Yes, we do. I have a client. It's similar. She used to come, and she'd sit here for an hour. She didn't really want to talk. She wanted to cry, and she wanted to shuffle my cards. So for a whole hour, she would sit with me, shuffling the cards, crying. Occasionally, she'd say the odd word. I'd see lots of energy around her. But sometimes I would have a real feeling to just go and place a crystal or something upon her. And then at the end, she'd sit there. She'd ask me the question that she needed to ask herself, but she'd ask me, and then she'd answer it herself. And I think that was, to me, very striking, because I used to think, oh, she's sat here, she's paying me, and all I'm doing is watching her cry and shuffle the cards. And at the very end, she would then pick a card. And it was always wonderful guidance for her, always perfect. But again, it's that, it was the connection, not the knowing or my skill or my abilities. It was just that connection. So yes. So thank you for reminding me about that. And she did amazing in her life. She really changed her life by having that safe space. Yeah. So
that's the key, because there's a lot of experiences that we can be traumatized from and just not feeling safe. So finding those unique safe spaces is particularly what's needed more today than previous, in my experience.
Yes.
And it thrills me to bits that I do get to tell the world that you're my client, because that to me is a privilege to know that you feel safe. Because we, as practitioners, we do so much for everybody else. We have to have somewhere to fall. We have to have somewhere where we're not the perfectly aligned, amazing, because we're human.
Exactly. And so many people forget that coaches are human. They forget it, or therapists, or whatever we are, because you and I work with other modalities and intuition and all those things. And for me, meeting you, as we did so briefly on a Zoom call of a mutual friend, it was perfect, because it happened just as I needed it. And of course, then we went into COVID not long after, as I was choosing to do your Unlock Your Power program. So for me, it's been a great journey, and having you there, especially through this time of COVID, when my clients were also suffering, and also my, not hate of technology, but I get very anxious around technology and Zoom and all these things. And I had to really learn how to adapt, and having been in Australia, and I started in Bahrain, and then I was in the UK, and now I'm back in Bahrain, having that Zoom connection to me was just so wonderful. And we know that the next few years this is going to grow, and you and I understand each other. So
it's kind of cool, isn't it, when we've got, so yes, we're talking about the, amazing energetic connection, but it's also the practical experiences of actually you working with me so remotely on Zoom. And then that's actually what possible outcomes you can create for your clients. And I think that's another really cool reason why coaches need coaches, because we actually learn from each other.
All the time. And finding somebody for me who was on the same level as me, how we work with our
That's
mind,
trickier, isn't it?
trickier. Yes, it was just like, wow, she's come in just at the right time. And the person who I did the institute I did my coaching with, and all my other teachers and all my other modalities are always laughing at me, because they're always saying, oh, Julie, you can pull the wool over most people's eyes. I don't over them. But then I found somebody who was like me, who would think, oh, I can't even play here, because you're going to get me. So to all our viewers here, Chris and I have a wonderful relationship. We really help each other. We'll pull each other up, but every time we have a session, we have a ha-ha moment. And I go, oh, yeah, of course. So that's why I wanted to share with you why I felt it's so important to share that I have this wonderful coach too. So Chris, before we close, would you like to say a little bit about what you do at Ballast Central and Raw, or whatever you would like to say? Because I'm sure we're going to have many more conversations like this over the coming years.
If anyone is interested, balancecentral.com.au is the best place to land. It's one of those websites that if you're curious, you could be there for hours. There are videos and more information, and then some, easily accessible on that website. And you can find out a lot about what it is I do, and particularly who I work with. I think that's really key. You know, we all know that in marketing that we don't really, we start off saying we can help anyone. And yet really it's about finding who we really work well with. And completely invite anyone who feels that connection that we've been just talking about, but that you and I have, if they feel that even for you, if they're feeling that connection drawn to you, they need to go to the website and look at the type of work and the type of people that we work with individually, and just see whether they can see themselves in those other people. So yeah, balancecentral.com.au is the best place to contact me. Unlock Your Power is one of my favorite programs. It's not my only one, but geez, it's one of my favorites. It does exactly what the title says it does. It unlocks all of those areas that we have locked down.
Literally. Literally, you can't. It helped me so much, because it was like I'm even though I do this for a living and my clients all benefit, I was starting to lock myself in and getting in my head and falling all over myself and not getting anywhere. And so that's why I chose to do Unlock the Power. It really, really helped me, and it came at the perfect time, which is, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
Not at all. But also, I think one of the magic pieces of Unlock Your Power is it is very much based around what the individual needs, rather than me saying what has to happen. So it's very much played out in what is needed for the individual, rather than, oh, it's a this number week course. Now I have one of those as well. But Unlock Your Power is not like that. It has this lovely, I call it a stretch. It allows people to stretch in their own time and with support along the way. And that's what I think, you know, we've learned to lock ourselves down over many, many years. So we need more than one session to open ourselves back up again. And because Unlock Your Power goes roughly for a year, it allows a lot to unfold in a really lovely, gentle way. It's why it's my, I know I'm not supposed to have favorite children, but it's almost one of my favorite children.
So because of Unlock the Power, it has encouraged me to start my program that I will be starting next year, called Dreamer. And I already am using it here. So we're going to dream our goals alive, because people have forgotten how to dream. and I will be doing, I'm putting it together now, so I'm very excited about it. But it was because Unlock the Power helped me to unlock my insecurities, really. And so, yes, I will be doing something called Dreamer. And so I thank you, Chris, because it's going to be my first really packed program like yours. So I do other mini courses and things, but so I'm just developing that, and I hope to launch that by spring of next year.
That's lovely.
So thank you, Chris, for being there with me. And I'm
my absolute pleasure.
And I'm sure we're going to have many more sessions like this over the months. And I want to just thank you. So you're in Australia today and Brisbane, and we're here. I'm in Bahrain today, and it's so wonderful we can still do this. You know, so if you think like 20 years ago, this would not have been possible. I'm not even sure.
Not at all.
10 years ago, but even when I started my journey, yeah, it's amazing.
Is this when we say it's a small world after all?
Thank you, my love, my lovely Chris. You look after yourself, and thank you for speaking.
And I'll see you soon.
And I'll see you soon.